guest, who actually is not in the studio, believe it or not. This is a remote interview. Um, Randy is actually going to be coming into Colorado. Unfortunately, things transpired where he could not be in the studio, but hopefully he can come in someday to see us. But we did um, uh, be able to have him remotely. So I'm sitting here with our celebrating vice president, Sarah Duke. How's it going, Sarah?
Hey, good afternoon. Happy Saturday. It's always wonderful to bring in and have an interview. And this one I'm super excited for. It's for this view that all of us have a K4CO radio app every Saturday. And it's beautiful. I'm in my Colorado dream, but you know, we're going to take this beautiful heat that we have. And we are streaming live as well on social media as well. So we have our media feed for what? It's pretty fantastic. We have an amazing guest with us. Like you said, Josh, we have Randy Deetz with us, who's the CEO of Ransom Shield, which is a software and recovery device. And I wanted to also mention real quick, this is presented by Innovative Events. Their main event experiences that cultivate long-lasting relationships and inspire communities. To find out more about their sponsors, go to www.events.com for more information. With that, super excited with us and welcome to K4CO. How are you? Absolutely. What Ransom Shield is, if you are a tech person, and if you're not a tech person, which is where I fall into, this is going to blow your mind and give you an elimination of probably how to protect your entire tech world. So, Randy, I'm going to turn it over to you. Can you give us just kind of a general overview of you and how you started and what made Ransom Shield?
I'm originally from Southern California and was born in a place called San Bernardino. It was a super nice place to grow up, and I haven't been back in a while. I've heard it's a bit sketchy now, so I'm not sure I want to go back. But as you can see from my hat, I grew up a Raiders and an A's fan, so I was always a bit of a contrarian. You know, my family were Rams and Angels fans, so I was always at odds with them. But yeah, I wish I could have been there. It would have been fun going to Denver, you know, seeing all the Broncos fans.
If you can call it that, is transferred over to the Kansas City Chiefs. So, you know, I will still allow us to continue.
Saying that the Raiders aren't any good anymore. Yeah, well, there's always hope.
The Broncos have stunk for many, many years, ever since, you know, Elway paid Super Bowl 50 and we just crashed. So hopefully we're on the upswing as well. So you can throw the dirt this way too. I sure hope so. It's time for maybe both Raiders and the Broncos to have a sigh of relief without our competitors.
That's for sure.
So it sounds like this has been your baby and a project for about 15 years. Is that correct?
Started out, like you said, about 15 years ago, and it started out as hard drive migration software. And this solution, as migration software, has been shipping for about 12 to 13 years in Japan. So it ships on there's a company called Buffalo that has external SSD drives. So the software has been shipping on those drives for about 12 years now. And so this is a solution that I've just sort of, it's been a side project of mine. And so it's sort of morphed into doing backup. And now it's, you know, backup and recovery. And it has a pretty interesting hook that makes it pretty unique. It's a tool that will actually allow you to start your system completely from an external SSD drive. So pretty cool in that if your system crashes or if you get malware, it allows instant recovery.
viruses, and it helps from any Windows PC. Is that correct?
Only works with Windows PCs. It doesn't work with Apple, but yes, and it's a product that's designed for small and medium-sized businesses, and I think it's especially useful for end users as well.
In Las Vegas is your hub, but people all around the world that are suffering from, which is great. People are picking up viruses, scams, everything.
Malware is just such a blight on just about everything tech now. And I wrote down a couple of stats here that I'd kind of like to read off for you, just to kind of give you an idea what's going on. So far this year, over 40% of victims of ransomware attacks have actually paid a ransom. And of that 40%, just over half have actually recovered any of their data. The most won't recover anything. Um, and it's just a worldwide problem. And small and medium-sized businesses, when they get struck by ransomware, potentially they're going to have to pay thousands of dollars to recover their data and potentially recover their machines. So yeah, that's pretty much what my ransom shield is targeting is combating um, all of these attacks and all the problems that are out there related to malware.
Really, I love it because I don't understand tech stuff. So I just want to give you an example and see if this is accurate. So if someone hacks into my computer, they steal all of my data, and then they reach out to me and say, you need to pay me $5,000 to get all of your data back, or else. Is that an accurate example?
What will happen with ransomware is it'll actually lock up your system. So um, various strains of malware and ransomware won't allow you to do anything on your system until you pay that ransom. So that's where my ransom shield comes in, because now if your system's locked up, it's encrypted, and they're making demands, we're not going to let you have your system back until you pay us. That's where my ransom shield comes in, because you can then just restart from your external device and recover.
Are getting into your information. Is this usually when you are hardwired? You say external drive, and I understand that you can back up your data certain ways. So you have the external drive, you have the cloud, you store things, information on your physical computer. We'll use that as the example for the device. So if you are hooked into someone else's Wi-Fi, are you more vulnerable, or does it make a difference if you are at home or your office?
You hooked into somebody else's Wi-Fi, you'd want to be on a VPN, and that sort of protects you from intrusions and people trying to spy on what you're doing, what's on your machine. So yeah, there's a lot of problems out there that can occur, based on how you're connecting to your machine and how you're connecting to the internet. So yeah, and all of those things are vulnerable to attack.
That especially their cell phone or their computer, who you're absolutely guilty of it. I think about this stuff all the time that I'm at risk. And unfortunately, it was hacked about 2 years ago, and 5 minutes of them playing around with my computer and your life is ruined. So to protect yourself is incredibly important. Throw out a statistic of the 40%. How many people do you know, either per second, per week, per day, that are actually getting hacked?
Well, if we're talking about businesses, pretty much half of every business in the United States will suffer some form of attack this year. And if it's a smaller or medium-sized business, there's a very high percentage of those that will never be able to recover. 6 months after an attack, I think the numbers are somewhere like 30% of small businesses that get attacked from ransomware, they might go out of business. So there's just a huge number of problems that are associated with these attacks, and reputation and just yeah, it's really bad. You really need to protect yourself if you're a small business.
If you could give an example that you were completely locked out, are there other ways that are getting in that you, that a person would know they are getting hacked?
Yes. So there's obviously certain signs that you're being hacked. Certainly your machine can slow down. The your connectivity, your activity connecting to the network. There's tools that will allow you to see, if there's outside sources that are trying to access your data. So yes, there's just any number of ways that your machine can be attacked. And I'd also like to add that there are ways that people are performing these attacks where they're not even accessing your machine. They're calling and making threats and saying, "We have your data," even though they may not. But just the very threat that we have your data and we're going to expose it if you don't pay us a ransom. I mean, there's attacks like that now.
People are attacking all different ways. And we do it. We're so sensitive. We have our entire lives right there on the computer and our mobile devices. So you said you've done this for 15 years. What is part of your background? Would you get into that a little bit and go through hacking, or did you say, well, this is a huge need? 50% of these businesses are getting
Since I graduated from uh, Cal State San Bernardino, where I grew up, I've pretty much always been involved with storage technology. So, um, one of the first companies that I started to work for, they worked with external media, and this will kind of date me, how old I am, but that company actually won Comdex in Las Vegas 2 out of 3 years. And they had a device where all you had to do was push a button and it would launch a backup. So yeah, it just seems like I've always been involved with storage and media, and so Ransom Shield just kind of naturally grew out of my previous experience.
the capital. So you, I'm sure, was very interested. Can you go into some details with my Ransom Shield? How is this work again? You know, details, but how is it also different from other services that would protect your data?
Out how most people are backing up their data. They're backing up with cloud services, and obviously, that's a good option for a lot of people. And it basically means that all of your documents, your financial uh, information, anything that you're generating on your machine, any of the data that will be backed up in the cloud. So if you suffer from malware or your machine crashes for any reason, all of your data will be backed up in the cloud. But the problem arises when, what happens if you have some sort of a physical problem with your machine? How are you going to recover from that? Because if that happens, the cloud isn't going to rebuild your machine. So if you're hacked in a way where um, you can't start up and boot into your system normally, or maybe you have some sort of a hardware problem, you're stuck. Because how do you rebuild your machine where you can get back up and running so you can then restore all of your data from the cloud? So that's really where my ransom shield comes in. And there's other tools that will allow you to back up the machine versus backing up the data. And most of those tools, if you have to rebuild your system from those tools, you have to go through a crazy number of steps to actually do the rebuild. And one of the things that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take your rebuilt hard drive and install it inside the machine. and that's how you'll recover. So, what makes my Ransom Shield so unique is the fact that you don't have to do any of those things. You don't have to do any rebuilding, nothing. All you have to do is reboot the machine, and it will ask you, do you want to start normally or do you want to start from the backup drive? And once you say, I want to start from the backup drive, that's it. You're back up and running, and all your problems are gone. You can just continue to run indefinitely off of your recovery device.
Curious actually when it comes to this because we live in a world of just cloud services. Your information is all out there, and a lot of information, a lot of people talking about, privacy, is protecting privacy. What makes this such a better option?
Well, I have to say I've always been sort of anti-cloud. You know, being in the storage industry, I've always had external storage devices, and I've always had a problem with, do I really want my personal documents, my personal information stored in a public cloud? Because that's really what it is. I mean, if you're using Carbonite or all the various other cloud backup services, your data is in a public place. And there's been a lot of privacy concerns. The Fourth Amendment basically says that there's actually an exemption to the Fourth Amendment where it says that if your information is in a public place, you don't have the right um, to uh, to privacy there. I mean, the government can come in and actually look at your information if they get like a FISA warrant or something, and so I know that's kind of getting into the details there, but there is questions about privacy, and I would just much prefer to have my data stored locally on a device that's connected to my machine and not out in a public cloud.
Like my mother, I don't think I can't think about. So are all of our data is what is right? It's really strange. And I totally agree. My dad was very involved in computers and tech stuff back in the 80s and 90s, and that was very important to make sure that you have that external drive. So I agree.
It's a different story for companies. I mean, cloud is just sort of embedded into all the systems that most of these medium and large size companies are doing. Um, if you have, multiple offices that are interconnected, you have to be in the cloud. I get that. But for end users, people with home computers, um, this is the place where my Ransom Shield is really the most benefit because there's no reason, in my opinion, there's no reason for your personal data to be stored in a public cloud. And we hear every day that these cloud sites are getting hacked. Plus, as we were talking about, the idea of privacy and who can get in there and who can search your data without your knowledge. And I don't think, we really know necessarily the extent of that sort of thing. So I personally would just prefer to have all my stuff local.
Well, that's right. Now now we're into the place where it's all and now
Really cool technology. It's patent pending, and it's called Drive Shadow. And what that does is you can actually connect your recovery device and leave it connected basically 24 hours a day. And with this drive shadow technology, it will hide the device from the system. It'll disable and hide it. And so what's cool about that is the backup process, maintaining and updating the backup device, that can all happen in the background. The user never knows what's going on. It doesn't know if it's, backing up or what. It just kind of does its own thing in the background. But when it's finished doing its update, it disconnects and it hides itself so that if malware attacks, it won't even see the drive. It won't know it's there to attack it. So kind of cool technology where it's connected, it's doing its own thing, and yet malware doesn't see it and can't attack it.
About my dad, I don't want to go there. But I would say the majority, and I would ask you, you are the expert. When you're talking to people about their devices, they usually just say, hey, I don't care, and I want to be protected. Is that, that's the gist.
And the big question is, how do you recover if you are hacked? So many people are getting hacked, and they're not preparing for you know what will happen if they do. And if you get hacked and your system is brought down, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare trying to rebuild your system and get everything back up and running. I mean, some people, it might take a week. And a lot of people are going to end up taking their machine to Geek Squad at Best Buy, and who knows, spending thousands of dollars to get their machine back, when all they really needed to do was buy my ransom shield and they're protected.
No, it would be when you get hacked and then you have 6 months of just hell trying to recover your money and change bank accounts and getting locked out of your computer, like you said, it's absolutely a nightmare. Yeah. So is malware, okay, I'm gonna say that right, malware, is transferred around the PC. Will it end up on the recovery device during the next backup?
That is a possibility. So, nothing is foolproof, nothing is 100%. But my ransom shield does have a couple of ways to mitigate those problems. And one of them is, you can optionally turn on a feature where it will identify all of the places on your system that are frequent places where malware can land, and you can exclude those from the backup. So most of these locations, like your browser cache folders, your internet temp folders, your Windows temp folders, your downloads folder, there's just a bunch of places on your machine that don't need to be backed up. They don't need to be on the recovery device. And these are potential landing places for malware that you download to your machine. So that's the first way that we mitigate these problems is we don't back up everything to the recovery device. We can optionally exclude all of these places where malware likes to hide. So that's the first method. The second method we have is, it's really interesting. The My Ransom Shield recovery device, it's a dual purpose device. So up to this point, all we've talked about is the fact that if you suffer from any form of disaster, you can start your machine from the external device. But you have two options when you start from the external device. The first is you can start normally and try to recover after a disaster. And the second is you can boot into a safe environment where we allow you to perform malware scans. So it's really cool where this safe environment, the your startup apps, a bunch of your drivers on the system, those are all blocked. Even your network access is blocked. So it's a safe operating environment where we allow you to boot into this environment and scan your system. And not only can you scan the external recovery device, but you can also scan the hard drive that's on your system. So a couple of really cool ways that we can mitigate those problems where, if malware lands on the internal drive, it could be backed up to the backup drive.
This is dealing with a device that you've been using, that something happened. What about devices that completely crash on your PC or is lost or stolen? Uh, Anything like that is possible to cover with another PC? Because that's one thing with the cloud that everybody says, oh, I get a new device, I just get everything back from the cloud. What is the difference there when it comes to this device?
While we're talking about the device, let me see if I can show the camera here. So this is the actual My Ransom Shield device, and it's an external USB 3.2 device. It's lightning fast. Yeah, exactly, but it's an SSD drive. It's I might even be able to open this up and let you see that. Well, I guess my system's kind of yeah. So there's actually a normal internal hard drive inside of the external enclosure. So you can actually replace your internal drive with this drive from the external drive. But back to your question about what would happen if your machine got stolen. Another really cool feature about the My Ransom Shield recovery device is it's portable. So you could take this device to another PC and you could boot that second PC into the recovery device, and you'd actually be in the environment from the PC that was lost or stolen. Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that we haven't touched on is the fact that when you're running from this external device, you can actually restore from that external device to another drive. So if your machine was lost or stolen, go to the second machine, run from the external device, and you could then restore to another drive if you want, and buy a replacement PC.
backtrack a little bit and forgive me if I heard this incorrectly. You said some things that you don't really need to back up um, to hold them onto the stick. So, like for me, example, I go to my email server and I on social media frequently. But I do have some more, quote unquote, more secure or private. Are there things that fall into, yeah, just don't call with the external backup? And there's stuff that maybe you can't really I'll use Facebook and Instagram, for example.
Facebook and Instagram, those are going to be online services, so I don't know how much of that data is going to be stored locally on your machine. But if we're talking about the question of what do we back up and what don't we back up, this is an option. So there are people that are going to say, you know what, I want every speck of data on my machine backed up to the device. But this is an option where there's just a ton of stuff that you don't need in your backup. And again, like if you're if you use Outlook as your email client, and you're clicking on the wrong links, and the all sorts of stuff is getting downloaded to your machine from your email, those will go into browser cache folders. And all of that stuff, you don't need it on your backup drive. And again, those are places where malware can hide. And so it's kind of a neat tool where we can say, okay, all of these hiding places, even your downloads folder, we're not going to back those up because they're not needed, and possibly there could be malware hiding there.
Um, sites like this, social sites, those are all picked up, everything like that. This is really just everything that's on your actual device. And I'm curious, mainly because this is the size of a thumb drive. I mean, this is, very small. You just plug it into a new computer or anything like that. I'm curious about the security. Um, is there what type of security do you have on this device of yours? Is there encryption involved or something where if somebody were to find this thing, um, how safe it is where they could not be able to use this and get everything off of it?
Support full disk encryption with BitLocker. So, and the neat thing about that is all of these features that we've talked about, the drive shadow technology, the bootability of the device, running in safe mode, all of those things work if you select to encrypt the device. And really, probably everybody should encrypt their device. I mean, maybe some home users maybe choose not to, but the full disk encryption, what it does give you is if the device is ever lost or stolen, somebody else goes to try to access the data on the device, it's going to be locked. It's going to be a paperweight to them. They're not going to be able to do anything with that device because they're not going to know what the BitLocker password is.
That's set up on that password for you right there. So, like, if an employee steals it or if it's just lost somewhere, sorry about
Yep, it's in my backpack floating around the state of Colorado somewhere. It is good to protect your devices. Oh my goodness. Oh, go ahead.
thing. So, mostly what we've been talking about here is protecting end users. I think this is a really great program for small businesses as well. And, getting into the discussion about BitLocker and encryption, one of the things that we're working on for small businesses is an administrative tool that will allow the admin to control the BitLocker process and the passwords that are on the device. So, in a small office, say you have 4 or 5 machines, this tool will allow the admin to be the only one that knows what those passwords are for all those devices. And again, this technology, we haven't shipped it yet, but we're very close. And the idea behind this is if, let's say, a disgruntled employee walks out the door with a device, they're not going to be able to take it home and plug it into their home machine because only the admin will have those passwords. And again, the solution is really cool in that they don't need the password when it's just connected to their machine and they're doing their backups because it all just works in the background. But as soon as the device is taken to another machine or stolen, um, the user's not going to have the password. They're not going to be able to get to the data. Yeah.
Trying covering the needs for that is the CEO of Ransom Shields. His website is, let me go back to my notes. So it's here, myransomshield.com. And you can email him as well at Randy, that's Randy, at myransomshield.com. And if you haven't heard the whole interview, go back on Facebook. It'll give you a ride for a full month, or you can also on YouTube forever. If you do own or involved in a small to medium-sized business, this is really crucial, or if your own individual computer and devices, they do need to be backed up and protected. So you just mentioned kind of on the smaller side. Does it work the same with a medium-sized business as well?
I think a lot of medium and large size companies, they're going to have enterprise solutions. And so I think the My Ransom Shield solution is more tailored towards certain users in a medium sized or large sized business. I don't necessarily think if you've got a sales force with 20 machines and they've all got the same machine, they've all got the same software, and there's a dedicated IT person there. So if anybody goes down, they just swap out the machine. That's not a good fit for My Ransom Shield. But for the engineers in the company, the executives, the financial people, I think this is a great solution. Even though those companies may have some sort of a cloud solution in place, um, still having an extra layer of protection for your key employees, I think, is a great plan. Certain employees just can't be down. The whole company can potentially, be hijacked if those guys go down. So that's where my ransom shield would also benefit a medium or a larger size company.
Again, what I want kind of totalization before we go into the nitty gritty. So my supports virtual hard drives, which I'm pretty familiar with. For VHDs, you're going to have to explain a little bit to me what that is. So what's a VHD, and how does VHD backup differ from normal backups?
I guess I would say that VHD backups are probably more of a power user feature that's in my ransom shield, but pretty cool in that a VHD is a backup of your entire system, but rather than mirroring that to another drive, the backup is actually just in a single file. So you have a full system backup of your machine, but it lives in a single file. And those files can also be loaded with, gosh, what are the VMware? Um, and there's other tools where you can actually load and boot into these files virtually. So I guess I'm probably getting into a little too much tech here, but But what's really cool about that technology is that, you know, under with the normal backup that we do, you have one backup to one device. Where with VHDs, you can do a point in time backup of the system and have multiple of these point in time backups on your backup device. So it's almost like Time Machine with Apple, where we're allowing you to basically roll back your machine to a previous state and run from that state from your external device. So just like the technology that we've been talking about prior to this VHD technology, you can run your machine from a prior state and a prior date, maybe a year ago, and you can actually restore that machine from that prior date as well. So usually you have like a bigger backup device if you want to do VHD backups. Um, and but that's kind of the cool thing, is that you can have multiple full system backups on the same device, and you can even have multiple full system backups of multiple machines on the same backup device.
That you're talking about. You can do that. Got
It can do that, but again, it's a little more of a power user feature. But my machine, I've got VHD backups and I have the mirror backup, with which is to this guy here. So I do both.
I think that's pretty incredible.
Well, it's always good to have multiple different backups. It's always good to have multiple different ways to restore information. And even at the price of what you created, it's just an absolutely wonderful idea to have as an additional backup.
Have multiple layers to your backup strategy. Don't just rely on one technology, especially if it's cloud based. Um, and you can do a hybrid strategy where all of your data is backed up in the cloud, but you still have the My Ransom Shield device to protect against any type of a hardware disaster or any type of a malware crash. Because even though your data is in the cloud, My Ransom Shield allows you to recover instantly from any kind of disaster and get you back up and running quickly.
On my Ransom Shield under your products page, for those of you that are able to access this computer, I mean, you are definitely reasonably priced for the $9 scheme. I mean, it's actually only subscription, which is pay per month. It looks like that's $3 per month. That's incredibly affordable to back up everything. And then you also have the software plus instant recovery device, which is more what we're just diving into. So there's no excuse for people to not be acting with their information.
I don't think you can buy anything for $3
I,
today.
this is insane. How do you even do this?
That we just recently ran, so those will be available for the summer. And I really want to stress to your users that we really take a lot of pride in making sure that our users are taken care of and that the device works like it's supposed to. So yeah, if you guys want to give it a try, we're always available and we're here to help. So yeah, I think it's a great deal we're running right now for sure.
Apologize if this was already mentioned, but a lot of times you think of, you know, people see this device and they're just like, okay, so this is backup. Plug it in the computer, run a pop it out that way. That date is our latest backup. Is this a device? You're simple. So it's just like, do you plug it in and back up once a month, once every couple of weeks? Um, how does that work? Because the whole idea of the cloud is, it's kind of instantly goes with you. But for this type of backup, which is a great backup, protects everybody against all of these attacks. How does that?
The backup to occur on a schedule. So I would recommend that most people should probably run a full system backup once a month to the device, and they should run daily incremental backups. So my Ransom Shield supports monitoring everything that changes on the system. And so once a day, whatever has changed since the previous day will get backed up to the device. And again, what's really cool about this technology is these incremental backups, they don't take but maybe 30 seconds to a minute to complete. So it's just really quick. It does the quick update. You can schedule this for early in the morning or late in the evening, and that's the only time that the backup would occur. And then if you're doing like a once a month full system backup, those might take an hour to get everything backed up. But I think that's a pretty great strategy. I'd also add that um, these things are cheap. I would buy two. I would buy two. I would do maybe a monthly full system backup and take that device and put it on your shelf, and then have a second device where it's just constantly updating to it.
Because what we use something that's not you said that half of these small to medium businesses sort of especially in this era, what people tax now their what is their back
This is probably just education. They probably don't realize what a huge problem this is until they actually suffer an attack, which is pretty tragic because, as we were talking about, especially with smaller companies, a really huge percentage, depending on the level of attack, a number of these small businesses won't ever recover. I mean, maybe 6 months later they'll be out of business just because of the severity of the attack. And gosh, I mean, these ransoms, they can ask for 50, $100,000, and what small business can afford that?
okay, I agree this is part of my placement for sure. And so when people do these devices and they sign up and they have a physical one and pay their subscription and they call you, do you have a team that you can talk to walk them through this? I'm asking you personally because I need a lot of help.
Support, and we pretty much always get back within at least 24 hours of somebody reaching out. And if people have questions, or they need more information, yeah, we'll give them a call and we'll step them through whatever they need.
Um, you mentioned, which I think is very cool, because we work with the IT representative. He's the one that says have multiple backups, make sure it's backed up not one way, but five ways. And one thing about my ransom shield that I guess is very unique is that this device verifies that the backup is working correctly, instead of running a backup and later on you go to it, it's just like, okay, it's not working correctly, I have to go to a different backup. How does that work?
Mind, because I was thinking about this very thing, where one of the very cool and unique aspects about my ransom shield is that you don't need to wait for a disaster to verify that it works and to see it in action. As soon as you complete your first full system backup, the next time you reboot your machine, it's going to ask you, which device do you want to start from? Do you want to start normally, or do you want to start from the recovery device? And if you choose to start from the recovery device, you're going to see your system boot into your external device, and you're going to see, all of your programs pop up. You're going to be able to open up a browser and browse the web and see that everything is functioning from your external recovery device. And again, there's horror stories out there of other recovery solutions where um, you don't know that it worked until the actual disaster hits, and you go to do your recovery only to find out that something was corrupted, something didn't work, and it's like, oh my gosh, here we are, we're suffering from this disaster, and our recovery solution isn't working. We can't restore the machine. So again, that's what's really cool about my ransom shield, is the ability to actually see that it works almost immediately after you purchase the product and you do your first backup.
So if you go to a site where you're clicking on a link that is, Well, it notifies you on your PC or your device saying it seems a little sketchy or you sure you want to move forward.
That's sounds like a pretty cool feature to add. But that is something that would probably be more for your antivirus protection. Your antivirus would probably pop up and say something.
You couple it with an antivirus.
Back to, having layers of protection, not just relying on one technology.
And there's very lot stored out there, even all of our sensitive material.
These solutions are really expensive. So as you mentioned, one of the things we're offering on the website right now is if you buy the device, we'll give you the first year subscription to the software for free. So for 89 bucks, you get the device and you get that $3 a month paid out for the first year. So again, just a very affordable solution that I think everybody should have.
And again, this isn't a solution, like you said, to get rid of backups. Have as many backups as possible. This is just one very strong, very affordable solution that has a lot of things attached to it. Um, are there, I mean, my ransom shield, of course, every business is growing, everything is evolving more and more. What is on the horizon?
Well, we discussed the dual purpose nature of the device where you can boot in to a safe environment and you can perform malware scans. We're going to add a full suite of tools that forensic tools that will let you uh, more closely identify um, any attacks that have occurred on the machine or any corruptions. We're going to do what's called rootkit scanning. We're going to introduce that to that environment where you can actually scan for lower level areas of your machine for malware. So we're going to expand upon the ability for IT personnel or maybe MSPs to do more forensics on the machines after they've been attacked. um, we're also going to do more with the admin console that we were talking about. So give MSPs and admins the ability to control how the software works. So if they want to enforce that BitLocker has to be used on all their machines, if they want to make sure that Drive Shadow is functioning on all the machines, the IT and the administrative personnel can actually control how the device works in a small business, small environment. So that's another place we're working on is these admin tools. Um, we're also looking at possibly doing some form of cloud backup. I know I'm kind of anti-cloud, but um, we're thinking about doing some sort of a hybrid solution where it does involve both cloud and the local device. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of cool technology we're working on.
Say it all depends on where the cloud is housed, who has control of the cloud, if the cloud's working, and again, it's only one type of backup that you should be utilizing.
For businesses, the cloud is just where it's at. I mean, there's no avoiding that. But as far as individuals, personal PCs at somebody's home, those things shouldn't be in the cloud, in my opinion.
That's how we view the cloud. Is they're up in the sky, right? Our data's floating around.
The cloud is still very weird to me when it's just like, where is all this information going?
It's elusive.
Yeah, it definitely is, and especially more on the operations side, the basic bare bones. And you were talking about real kit. Can you explain a little bit more? Because what do you mean by real kit scanning?
Well, malware can embed itself deeper into a system, you know, versus just attacking files and locking up your data. Malware can actually even embed itself into the firmware of the device. One of the things that Windows relies on to protect the PC is a safe boot technology, and that's at the firmware level. And there's malware now that has actually gotten in and infected these machines at the firmware level, which basically allows them to take over the whole device. And even if you reprovision the device, that malware is still embedded and you can't get rid of it. So that's one of the things that we'd like to expand on is doing more extensive low level scans of the device and giving MSPs and IT administrators more tools to do that type of detection.
The firmware, once it gets into like the bones of it, it is that much harder to recover.
I would suggest, there's a lot of remote tools that medium-sized and larger-sized businesses are using where they can remotely repurpose hardware if there's a problem. And again, I would suggest that my personal machine, if I had some form of malware or ransomware, I would take the hard drive out of the machine and I would take a hammer to it and I would throw it in the garbage because um, again, you're never really sure how deeply embedded the malware is, and can it reinfect your machine even after you reinstall Windows? So again, that's another a big benefit of my ransom shield is if these machines are getting attacked at the lower level, repurposing them remotely is not going to you know repair the problem potentially.
Yeah, with the hammer. Very cathartic, actually. Yeah, we've done it in space. That's kind of everybody can go out and destroy a piece of technology when it's not working.
It is.
That's
It's not very didn't shut the wheels on the baseball bats, but that definitely happened. And it's on video, so you can crazy about tech stuff.
we'll definitely check. Oh, go.
This is all really scary stuff, though. I mean, a lot of these attacks are now being initiated by state actors. China, Iran, North Korea. I mean, a lot of these are state-backed malware groups that are, attacking these our systems. And so, yeah, I mean, just all of this is really scary, and you really need to protect yourself.
People say, "I'm no. Why? Why would they come after me?" I mean, I'm nobody. I can understand, big business and government stuff. I'm just a regular person. You know, regular. Why would they come after me? What would you say to somebody?
Man, I'd let them take a look at my email. The stuff I get in my email every day, just all kinds of crazy stuff where um, I am tech savvy, so I can see when somebody's trying to fish my machine or do something to break in. I mean, just daily, the amount of junk I get in my emails that are coming from people that are trying to hack into my machine is incredible. And if you're somebody who's not tech savvy and you see these things and you think, oh, well, this is, somebody is reaching out and, they want to sell me something or whatever, they click on the wrong links and their machine potentially is toast just from clicking on the wrong link.
I mean, years ago, where it's just like it was just blatantly obvious. It's just like the spelling, logos, like everything was just like it's key kind of. They're getting savvier. They're getting very, very realistic on this stuff. So,
They are getting smarter. Well, I wanted to give a shout out to your partners. Again, I'm looking at myrandomshield.com. It looks like you have quite a few amazing partners with you. You have AOS Technologies, Philips, CMS Products, Fornix, MSP, and Scientific Connection. Those are all amazing partners that you are. Is there anything else that you would like to shout out? I know we touched a little bit about you found an antivirus. Is there something you would recommend coupling with your product?
Surprisingly enough, if I had to choose an antivirus to recommend, the one I use is the one from Microsoft, the one that's built into Windows. They have real-time protection for your file system, and so I mean it's free and it's a pretty awesome tool. So that's the place I would start is with Microsoft. Make sure that your Microsoft antivirus is up and running and working properly. Yeah. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. And I'd also like to send a shout out to Charlene at Fornix Media, John, Lisa, Baden, JJ. They're all awesome. I can't say enough about how much they've helped me. And I'd also like to send a shout out to Dave and Amy at Cybertech Connection. Again, just awesome friends that have just done so much for me. Really appreciate them.
Great. Thank you. I was thinking of what we're doing right now. Getting live. We love to read the we all have to admit it's not very good from us for creating something new and that we're gonna have to troubleshoot through. So thank you for doing this, live with us and being remote space. It's really cool to go down the street and really getting information out to people who really small communities. I appreciate you doing that.
Much. I really appreciate it. And this is the first time I've really done something like this. So this isn't my normal bag. I'm an engineer, so I really appreciate you kind of working with me here because yeah, this has been really great.
Finding this is a fun part of it is to have people on an interview to get out really good information, especially protecting those that we serve here in the community. Well, Randy, thank you again. Is there anything else that you wanted to make sure that we mentioned about my ransom shield before we sign off?
Yes, I would just say that again, please reach out if you have any questions. We offer full money back guarantee if it doesn't work for you. And again, we're here for you. So we're here to help you through anything you need to get this thing up and running and get you protected.
So awesome. Absolutely love it. Definitely check it out. MyRansomShield.com. Software recovery device. It's just very small, the size of a drive. It's actually awesome. And tell about the uh, promotion. Once again, for our listeners, especially the listeners that just got caught on, for $89, what can you get?
So they can get the device and they can get the first year of the software subscription for free. And if they want to use their own device, the software does work with any other device that's out there, and that's just $3 a month.
Mr. Randy, CEO of My Ransom Shield. Definitely check out the website and yeah, contact them if you have absolutely any questions. Um, I still keep looking at the price. I absolutely love this thing.
Yeah, to
So,
go protect your life with $3 a month. I mean, oh my God, that's. I'm trying to think of my gas. I could make my idea on spend $3. So it's extremely affordable. So no excuses, especially when the small to medium-sized businesses are going to have this issue this year alone. Definitely protect your life. We have all this information at our fingertips on our paper, and contact Randy and my ransom shield for your PCs and all your devices with protection.
well, Randy, thank you very much again. Really appreciate it. So, definitely stay on with us a little bit after the interview here. Um, just want to talk to you a little bit more. We're really looking forward to just working with you a little bit in the future and see what we can do, how we can help you out. So, thank you very much for communicating with us. Definitely. You and this is going to be on YouTube, social media platforms for a period of time. And if you have any questions, always feel free to contact me, of course, Radio, or just go directly to myransomworld.com. Have a wonderful rest of the Saturday. It's going to be a beautiful Saturday here in Denver. Hopefully, it's beautiful for you. All right. Perfect. You have yourself a wonderful weekend, and all of our listeners, you as well. Everybody take care. Thank you very much for listening. Keep listening to B4CO Radio. Mellow to metal music from the 1940s all the way through today, and heavily Colorado artists. Everybody take care. Stay tuned.